Helgason, CEO and co-founder of VitroLabs. Ingvar's passion for fashion started at the age of 16 when he left school to become a fashion designer. He founded and ran his own high-end fashion brand for 10 years and scaled up to distribution in 23 countries. His love for fashion and technology led him to start VitroLabs. As CEO and founder of VitroLabs, Ingvar's understanding of fashion, eye for product, and passion for science and technology brings a new perspective into the emerging world of cultured leather. And don't forget to add some questions in the side. I'll make sure I send them over. And welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great being here. Awesome. So, yes, slide is up. Everything is working. Awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of how I got started in this industry, and then talking about the product that we're developing at VitroLabs, and then really kind of what we're thinking about when we're talking about getting to scale, and some of the challenges and of course opportunities that we face there. Now, let me actually just quickly go back, and so spoiler alert, this is actually our leather on the photo. So we have made significant progress in developing our product. So again, this is not just some random image. This is actually our product. My background is in the fashion industry, and as Nicole said, I left school at 16. I became interested in fashion at an early age. I really kind of wanted to work in this industry that seemed kind of glamorous and interesting and very foreign to me. I come from a very academic family, so again, kind of it was really something that was kind of tantalizing in the horizon, and seemed like kind of a hard thing to get into. But so I moved to I did some short courses, did some internships, moved to Paris when I was 19. And then London when I was 20, and then continued working in the industry for 5 years until I was 25, and started a fashion brand when I was 25. Did that then for 10 years, and it was really kind of within that context where I started learning about, of course, materials, started learning about some of the challenges that the industry is facing, and really started to learn about what the how technology was being used and wasn't being used in the industry. Specifically, I founded a software company, which was a production management software company when I had my brand, because again, I couldn't find a solution for that. So it was there that I got kind of the interest in, well, next gen materials and technology, and what really kind of made me become interested in natural materials is how we source them and the problems with how we source them. So I think I'm preaching to the choir here when I'm talking about that leather sourcing is not exactly the most environmentally friendly supply chain. It really starts with the industrial animal agriculture portion of it, and as a co-product of the meat industry, leather is per kilo one of the most environmentally damaging materials that is used in the industry today. In that we see, of course, there's runoff and water pollution, deforestation and displacement, greenhouse gas emissions, and of course, unethical treatment of animals. If we take a step back and then actually look at the specific issues that are not just focused on industrial animal agriculture as a whole, but really the leather portion of the sourcing. There's the supply chain of traditional leathers is, well, at best untraceable and very opaque. It is hugely wasteful. as well, because only a portion of the hides get used, and then kind of the inconsistent quality that that the industry is seeing, specifically with the optimization of meat output rather than leather quality when it comes to traditional animal agriculture. On the traceability, there was a report back in 2020 about European car companies. They were asked if they knew where their leather hides came from, and they couldn't really answer that question. Turned out that a number of those hides were coming from countries like Paraguay, which were leading to displacement of indigenous people, cutting down of forests, and a host of problems that kind of led from there. So they held up their hands and said, well, I mean, there's no way for us to trace the origin of all our hides. Therefore, this is clearly a problem. When we look at the usability per hide, when we look at the luxury industry, only between like around 60% of the entire hide is actually usable, because again, they're cutting around portions of the hide that are not, that have wrinkles in them and undesirable qualities, and that again leads to the inconsistent quality. So again, any damage that happens to a hide, happens to the skin of an animal while it's alive, shows up at the final hide stage. So that is clearly an issue. Now, back in 2007, I had this idea because, again, I'm a huge sci-fi fan, and I had probably watched Blade Runner one too many times. I had this idea, well, if we could do like they do in the sci-fi movies, wouldn't it be cool? I mean, they're growing owls and snakes and other things in the movie. So wouldn't it be cool if we could apply those, futuristic technologies that, well, don't exist or didn't exist back then, to an industry of sourcing materials, and therefore we could actually remove the ethical implications and, of course, a significant portion of the environmental implications of traditional leather. The sketch that you see on the right, that was the first kind of sketch that I made around kind of the equipment to do this. Now it is pretty rough and ready, but and the original idea was actually to grow fur and not leather, but so that was the piece of equipment that I wanted to use to grow fur. It has evolved a little bit since, and we luckily have a very smart team of scientists and engineers that are much smarter than me when it comes to building equipment. So it has evolved a little bit since. But really, the original thought was, how can we make this work? And so that was in 2007. In 2011, while I was still running my brand, I saw that Modern Meadow started, and Andras, true visionary, and a good acquaintance nowadays. He wanted to grow. They wanted to grow both leather and meat in the lab. And well, fast forward to 2015, I unfortunately had to close down my brand. Made some expansion errors there, and I saw that Modern Meadow actually hadn't released a product, and I thought, well, in my, as I like to say, infinite wisdom and knowledge of biotech, which was wisdom maybe close to zero, but knowledge of biotech definitely at zero. I thought, how hard can it be? And so I took a flight to the Bay Area, met with the guys at IndieBio, wrote them a cold email, and they met up with me and really kind of had that conversation, told them what I wanted to do, and they were like, well, the industry, so that's really interesting, but how the hell are you going to do it? So the next stage for me was to figure that out, and I said, well, I had to hold up my hands and say I have no idea. So the next phase of doing anything is just go to Google, and Google was kind of told me, I Googled how to grow skin in the lab, and found a paper published by my now co-founder, where he had grown full thickness skin for drug testing and cosmetic testing in the lab, and well, reached out to him, and after kind of him ignoring me for a significant amount of time, he decided to reply to me, and the rest is history. So in January 2016, we set up VitroLabs with the aim of growing real animal hides in the lab using tissue engineering. Now, The process that we go through, it's a one-time sourcing of cells from an animal. We then expand those cells in large volume bioreactors or stir tank reactors, for those that are more familiar with bioprocessing. We then harvest those cells from the stir tank reactors, seed them onto scaffolds, and then place those scaffolds in tissue reactors that we have designed and built in-house. And it takes between 3 and 4 weeks, depending on kind of what type of process you run, to then get to a full thickness calf hide. And we then harvest those hides. Those hides then go through a pretty similar process as traditional hides. And so there's no kind of maturation, or there's no post-processing after the harvesting happens. So they're salted, packed up, shipped off to our tanning partners. Then they are tanned and finished and made into the leather that we know and love. I'll talk a little bit more about the tanning in a moment, but that's kind of high level of what that process looks like. Now, our leather, again, we don't rely on animal agriculture apart from that one-time biopsy. What we're of course going for is the premium quality. So again, growing those hides that allow us to transform said hides, our engineered hides, into high quality leather. The important part is also being compatible with existing supply chain infrastructure, something that was touched on in the panel that I was part of this morning. It's how to reduce the friction of working with brands. How can we work with their existing supply chain? And for us, that is a really important piece of the puzzle, because again, if you know the tanneries and the tanning industry and how the hides are transformed, because you have a hide and that hide can become a car seat, it can become a soft leather glove, it can become a belt, it can become a structured handbag, it can become all these different things, and really it comes from the same animal hide. Now, so the real kind of magic and the artistry and the properties that you're looking for in the final product, they get imbued during that tanning phase. So it's really important, and has been important for us to work with the entire supply chain as it has been set up. Now there are of course benefits that I'll talk about in a little bit, but from using our hides. But yeah, it's really slotting into that supply chain. Then of course our product is fully traceable. So it's something that brands can be proud of using, and they know where it comes from and how it's made, and what that supply chain looks like. So again, there are going to be no surprises down the line. And then that thing that I wanted to touch on in the tanning, it's a simplified tanning process. So the tanning process has been reduced. We use up to 90% fewer chemicals, because again, we just grow up to the thickness that is required, rather than having a thick cowhide that can be up to 1 inch to 2 inches thick, where you have to get the chemicals to penetrate all the way through the full thickness of the hide, and then shave it into the thickness that you require. And during the traditional tanning process of a traditional cowhide, up to 80% of the weight of that hide can end up in a landfill, often filled with chemicals and other kind of nasty products, because of course you have to remove the keratins, which are the hairs and the epidermal layer from the top, any excess meat and that is stuck to it. Apologies for the graphic description; it's not a nice process. So yes, so it is really kind of, for us, important we just grow what is needed, and we just tan what is needed, and therefore just use the chemicals that are needed for that final product, rather than any additional kind of wastage that is thrown away. Our hide is most like full grain or top grain traditional hide. So that's kind of what we model it on. The split leather or suede has much looser collagen structure. So again, kind of has a very different surface texture. So we have looked at both, and really our hide comes closest to the full grain leather. So again, we have a beautiful grain on the top, and as well we have a grain that can be, we can add grain as with embossing or any other type of finishing that a tannery would like to do on said leather to get to the products that they're looking for. So for us, it's really achieving the properties of the animal hide. So it's about the collagen concentration and the collagen orientation, making sure that the structural proteins that are the same in a traditional bovine hide and our engineered hide are same or the same or at least very similar. It's a balance of non-collagenous materials, so there are multiple different types of structural proteins that are in traditional hides. There's a low percentage of elastin. There are GAGs or glycemoglycans. I think I'm probably butchering that name. Any scientists in the audience are probably cringing right now. But yeah, so those non-collagenous materials that also give the add to that final product and add to the properties of the final material when it gets transformed through the tanning process. And then we have as well a proprietary biomaterial scaffold that can be tuned and really can add an extra layer to that engineered aspect of the product. So again, we can add strength, we can add flexibility, we can add whatever properties our partners are looking for. We can work with them to engineer exactly what they are looking for, apart from just them having a beautiful animal hide at the end of it, or tanned and finished leather. So these are all things that kind of make our process quite interesting. I see somebody commented on, yes, thank you. Just say gags. I agree. I will use that going forward. These are photos here on the versatility, of course, and kind of shows a little bit about the durability and the premium quality of our hides. So these are our hides that are going through the tanning process with our partners at the Caring Group at a tannery in France. And so the process looks similar to a traditional tanning process. So again, kind of you stake the leather to add softness and kind of the supple feeling to it, and it goes through a drying process and that to create that crust for the crust stage, and then it goes through retanning and finishing, just like you would do with a traditional hide. This is actually photos that have not been shared very widely. So you're some of the first people to see them, which I'm extremely proud of. The product development over the years, it has certainly evolved. On the far left-hand side, back in 2016. So yes, that is a US quarter, and yes, those are our hides that we grew, the first hides that we grew. And yes, I was extremely excited when I saw them coming out of the incubator, and it really kind of proved to us that it would be possible to do something a little bit more ambitious than those kind of tiny little button-sized hides that we had there. We then went through a kind of multiple iterations of trying to figure out how do we scale this, etc. We used 3D printing for a while, which didn't scale at all, and therefore moved on to in a sense, more traditional tissue engineering method of using a biomaterial scaffold that we seed the cells onto, but also much more scalable. So 2019, that is one of the first hides that Caring tanned for us, and while it didn't really have the you had to squint pretty hard to see to imagine that it was leather, but it had some of the qualities that you're looking for. So it had the scent, which is a really important part of any leathers. And we could see that we could absolutely improve the quality of the hide and kind of tweak the tanning process to fit in with what we're looking for. So in 2020, we kind of got to a little bit better quality hides. And then in 2021, despite the global pandemic, our team was extremely resilient and worked extremely hard through a very difficult period of time during the challenging times that we all had, and achieved some incredible outcomes in terms of the hides themselves that we then worked with caring on tanning and finishing. And really those are the things that we see here on the far right hand side. And of course, we are continuously developing the product, continuously tweaking the tanning process, and then working closely with caring on developing that next level quality that we're really looking for, even beyond what we have achieved today. So this is something that we are super excited about. Now, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, again, we use up to 90% fewer chemicals, but it's also a shortened process in terms of time, because again, we don't have to go through the full pickling and the full liming, which is part of the first part of the process in terms of removing keratins and any excess waste material that is on a traditional hide. That is a really simplified and reduced process on our side. We, again, as I mentioned, tan only what's needed. We use way fewer chemicals, there's much less waste produced, and again, we use a chromium-free tanning recipe, and that is something that is part of us wanting to deliver, of course, in our sustainability goals and being as environmentally friendly as we can. And that is, those are kind of things that we're still working on, and there's still things that we need to improve on, but we're making very good headway. Now, to talk about the scale part, I wish that I could show you some more photos of the platform itself. We're still there's still a number of proprietary things that we unfortunately can't share, but we recently moved into a pilot facility in Milpitas. It's a 45,000 square foot facility that allows us to build out our pilot production that we are actually launching this summer, and moving very fast on that. And it's a huge milestone for us to reach, to actually move from that lab scale and R&D scale to pilot manufacturing, and then of course seeing the pilot manufacturing expanding from the low volumes that we're going to produce in the beginning to the thousands of square feet annually that we will achieve within this facility. Now, this is of course just our pilot facility, but we're looking to roll that out into a full-scale manufacturing facility in the coming years as well. So stay tuned for more information on that. Now, I wanted to go back a little bit to the traceability, because it is it is a little bit of the a little bit of the dirty secret that has been in the industry, and more so for hides that are of lower quality and lower price points. Not so much for European calf and other high quality hides that the luxury industry traditionally uses, but of course, because we do want to scale up, where we're not just selling to the luxury industry, but we also want to sell to to any industry that uses traditional leathers, or has even moved away from traditional leathers to products that are alternatives to leather. So those are things that we are very, very keen on. Those are industries that we're keen on engaging with. The a traditional hide can travel up to 19,000 miles before it's transformed into leather and then made into product and shipped around the world. So again, we believe in a future where manufacturing is hyper localized, where we manufacture exactly what is needed when it's needed to the specifications of the companies and brands that we're working with, and where they can also dial up and down the demand within a few weeks, rather than the growth of a full-size cow is 2 years, and really it can be hard to dial up and down based on demand the hides that the brands are using without really disrupting the entire supply chain. So for companies being able to tweak that demand within a few weeks rather than within a couple of years, that's something that we see as well will help the industry. It will lead to reduction in wastage. It will give companies more control over their supply chain, and again, give them the ability to really experiment and play around with products and when they're brought to market. So I'm nearing the end of the presentation here. As I discussed in our panel earlier, a big part of what we do is, of course, working closely with our customers, making sure that we are aligned with our customers, making sure that we have that constant dialogue with our customers to understand what they need, when they need it, and exactly how they're looking for their products to be made and of course then finished, and what the performance is. So yeah, this is something that we've been putting in a lot of effort and work in, and of course we couldn't make it happen without our amazing team at VitroLabs. And if anybody is looking to join a company like ours, we are hiring aggressively across multiple functions. So a little bit of a shameless plug here: vitrolabsinc.com/careers. Do look if there is anything that fits in with what you're looking for, and we would welcome to have a conversation with anybody that wants to join the company. So thank you so much. I think I'm a couple of minutes ahead of time here, but yeah, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. And I put the link in for you because I know there are a lot of people who are looking to enter the industry. So we do have about 2 minutes left, and we have 2 more questions. Do you have some time for questions? Great. So the first one is, can you describe your scaffold bioreactor? And this person, Eric, is picturing large flat trays of cells that get full leather sheets.
Not far off. Eric, you clearly know what you're talking about. Yes, that's pretty much how it is. So trays with hides growing in them. We are, of course, working on kind of scaling that up and optimizing the usage of space, and how can we grow more hides in a smaller area. So yes, but essentially that's what these reactors look like. There's systems that are built into them to monitor what is happening on the inside, monitoring the consumption of nutrients by the cells, and making sure that the cells have the optimal amount of nutrients, etc. So yes, it's an engineering challenge for sure, but something that we've designed and built in-house.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have. But we are going into a networking break, which is the perfect time to visit the VitroLabs booth. So please head over there and ask the team some more questions. And let me just make sure I'm on my script. I'm saying everything correctly. So yeah, and then we do have some networking time. So please feel free to enter the networking section and meet with some people one-on-one. And I will see you back here in about half an hour. Thank you all.